Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I am of course your host as always, Tony Jameson, and joining me is the one and only Rich Owens. Rich, how the devil are you, buddy?
I'm not too bad, thank you, pal. Not too bad at all. Definitely not a little bit sunburned, but and nobody else here is either, so everything's absolutely fine.
Absolutely not, mate. Absolutely not. Definitely not using an older camera to not show the sunburn for those people who are watching on YouTube. For those people who are watching on the podcast, I look immaculate. But for those people on YouTube, yeah, we've ran a colour filter. Let's just put it that way to try and balance that one off. So a pleasure, of course, to have you in as always, Rich. But you're not the only person today.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No, we are joined by a guest. Everyone, welcome aboard the Mad Scientist. The Mad Scientist, how are you, buddy?
I'm very good, thanks. Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's a pleasure to have you on. And I say, I want to call you Mad, right? And I know that's not your name. So we'll say hello to Lucas, but I will refer to you throughout this conversation as Mad, because that's just how I've conversed with you throughout this time. So apologies for that. But anyway, genuinely, it's awesome to have you on. Thank you so much for being part of today's show. We've wanted to get you on for a while because for the people who maybe don't know, the Mad Scientist is the brains behind such database creations as FM21's O102 database, FM22's 92-93 database. Oh, and I thank you so much for that. But it's not just that. Mad, you've got a CV and a half. Do you want to talk us through some of the other works that you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's gone crazy since I started on this. So for the last 5-6 years, the databases are getting more and more comprehensive. I'm using a lot of time on them, and I have a CV in some sort of already. As you mentioned, the O102 database last year and the 92-93 this year. I made the O607 database, the O304 database. I've made a 1995-96 database, a 9085-86 database, and a 9066-67 database so far.
I mean, that you've pretty much covered off all of the best eras of football. Like, there's nothing, like, all the normal bases now just seem boring. Just like, why would you bother playing the modern era? You could play 92, 93 all the time.
Past. And you know my favourite thing about that as well? The so far at the end of it as well. Because that's like this is the tip of the Mad Scientist iceberg. There are many more databases to be made, which just gets me a bit excited, if I'm honest with you.
Absolutely. So I guess the question that we'll ask first of all is, what got you? So first of all, what got you into Football Manager or Championship Manager? I'm presuming you may be like us from the older generation. What got you into the game in the first place? And then what turned that switch on for you to go, I want to do database creation?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And as you said, like you guys, I started with the very first Championship Manager. I had played already some other football management game before that, but that got my attention from day one, and I just loved playing the first installments of Championship Manager. They're still so nostalgic to me. And I think maybe 4 or 5 years after the first release, there started to come some editors on the market, so you can edit a player's name or his age, just little tiny details. And I started toying around with those, and then I actually worked with some other guys on our own editor, so we could start editing even more stuff for the Championship Manager game. And I think already back then, 25 years ago, it's so mental to say out loud, but back then, even then, I was nostalgic and brought back some players who weren't in the game back then. So it's been like that the whole time for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. Because even then, like, so when you were saying there about the fact that the editor was actually part of the game, I'd forgotten that. And then I remember, and forgive me, listeners, if I've told this story before or not. I can't remember if I have, but the only time I've ever used the editor was, I'm pretty sure it was the 0102 era, and myself and a mate. So one of my mates was messing with a guy at his work, trying to wind him up, because he was the sort of fella that would believe any gossip that he'd read in the newspaper that week that a player was going to be signed. And it's usually like he would go for the exotic sign of foreign name, going, "Oh, he's signing in. He's going to be brilliant. Why is that? Just he's got an exotic name. He's going to be brilliant." Like, and my mate was winding him up because he worked for Nissan, the car factory, and he decided that day that he was going to tell his mate that Sunderland were about to sign a Dutch player called Hans van Rentel, and and his mate was going, "I think he plays for PSV, doesn't he, that lad?" He's like, yeah, PSV. And so he's done this he's like, "Have you heard any more about this Van Rentel guy?" Like, "Oh, I don't have any news on it." "Oh, no. Apparently he's in talks with his cousin as well, Peter Van Heyer." He's like, "Oh, right. Oh, he might be in there as well." So just for a laugh, me and my mate put Hans Van Rentel and Peter Van Heyer into our database. It's the only time I've used the editor ever, but I had to share that with you. That's my only editing claim to fame, I'm afraid.
Brilliant. But for many years, I only made these databases for myself and my friends, so I can relate.
Excellent. So how long do these take then? Like, just on average? I'm guessing that they take more as you go along. So when was the first database creation of your own?
I've always enjoyed bringing back entire periods from time, specific seasons. I've toyed around with that, with making some legends databases and things like that. But I mostly enjoy bringing back entire seasons. So I think some of those 90s seasons were some of the first I brought back for me and my friends as well.
I mean, like, for us, again, myself and Rich, we've spoken about this so much, and this podcast is basically reminiscing more than anything. And for me, I mean, I've waxed lyrical about this. For me, 92-93 is the greatest season of football ever. Like, I'm 42 now. I was an impressionable 12, 13-year-old at the time. The Premier League had just been created. Italian football was the greatest football you could possibly imagine, with the greatest players playing the best they ever were. Sunday mornings was Gazzetta Football Italia. Sunday afternoons was Serie A. I mean, what more could you want? Italia 90 was not long gone. USA 94 was on the horizon. When you announced you were doing 92-93, oh, genuinely, man, I felt it was a personal present to myself. And I know a lot of the community felt exactly the same way, that they all just went, everyone of a certain age just went, "Oh, now we're happy."
And please don't forget the Euros in 92 as well.
Well, Denmark,
exactly.
Absolutely. Coming off the back of the greatest achievement, of course. And I think that I mean, presumably, the response has been overwhelmingly positive, right?
Absolutely. I must say so. I knew when I started on this database that it was never going to be like the 0102 database. That's just an epic game and an epic database in itself, with all those legendary players like Ciano Sampa and Chigalgo and all those players. So it will never come to that level. But the 92-93, the what can you say? The crowd who plays with this database, I get some fantastic DMs from now and then. I can definitely see that it means a lot for people who I can relate to age-wise as well, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I've been, you know, if you follow people like Mad on social media, you'll see that it makes my heart sore when I get to see things like when you're retweeting or tweeting things like, you know, there have now been, you know, 30, 40,000 downloads of this database. Like, it just goes to show that there's so many people out there that just have so much time and love and respect what it is that you do. Like, the amount of database that you've released now, do you still get the same amount of enjoyment knowing that people are using your databases? Like, now, considering how long you've been doing it for, do you still get the same level of enjoyment from knowing that people in the community are taking what you do and using it and getting such a huge level of satisfaction and enjoyment out of it? Does it mean as much to you now as it did when you first started doing it? Is it the kind of thing you're like, "Oh yeah, I've just made another great database. Of course people are loving my work." How does that make you feel as somebody who just creates?
Well, it's a very good question, Rich, and I must say it's all very, very much still mind blowing to me that there's so many other fellow nostalgians around. When I released in 2015 by a mistake, actually, I released the first database through Steam, and I started to get some feedback on it. Until that, I only played it with my friends and stuff. And the feedback led to someone told me, please check out a guy on YouTube who makes videos on Football Manager called Loki Doki. He's using your database. And at that point, I didn't even know there was something called content creators around. So that was mind blowing. And I think when I made the 0607 database back in 2020, while I was working on it and the whole world got in lockdown, my DMs exploded. Please release the database earlier and please speed it up and stuff. And I usually don't listen to that, but I could understand everyone was at home and I released it a little bit earlier. And then my DMs completely exploded. And that's what I have enjoyed most creating these databases. I had messages from all over the world, from Jamaica to Singapore to North America, South America, Europe, all over the world. And that is still mind blowing to me that there's people playing Football Manager, first of all around the world, and also playing my database. I simply can't understand it. So I answer every DM I get, and it means so much to me still.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Genuinely is. And you're right to see how these databases are received, and particularly you mentioning there lockdown, like people almost demanding that you work quicker. Like how long on average does an average database take you? Because I'm just trying to work out how much of a massive ask is that to say we're on lockdown. Can you hurry up, please? Like, I mean, how long on average would a database take to be ready for release?
Yeah, usually I can't do that. I can't speed it up. I know now what it takes exactly for me. I'm a bit of perfectionist and I won't release the database before it's at a stage that I can be happy with. And that takes me 4 to 6 months where I work 12 to 14 hours a day on the database. And that's what, in my opinion, it takes to make a playable database like this. For this 92-93 database, the latest, I prepared for 2 months before the game was released, and then it's taken me 4 months after that to create to build the database. So around 6 months every time.
Wow. Okay, so that's essentially half of the game cycle itself. Because you've said openly on this cycle that you've only just in the last couple of months started playing FM22 because you're making FM 92, 93, essentially.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I almost enjoyed more being an editor, and that's why the name fits the character, the mad scientist. I know it's close to an obsession, to an OCD, because I enjoy the editing phase, the grind, all the problems and issues and challenges. I enjoy it so much. But yeah, I think it's approximately a month ago I started playing FM22 for the first time.
Wow. Just six months of somebody's time invested in anything at any level is quite incredible. To be doing it for 12 plus hours a day for that length of time as well, that's I can't I just can't imagine it. I can't imagine something taking over my life to that degree for that much time. And then the topper as well, to put it out there for people just to say, hey, this is what I've done. Please go and enjoy the last 6 months of my life, is just for free, just to give people the opportunity to do that as well. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like what would you say is what's your kind of, say you say a couple of months maybe of research and then 4 months of actually creating the database. What's your kind of favorite phase of that? Do you enjoy the research side of it, or do you enjoy the actual kind of the more technical side of things?
I would say both. There's different periods I love and enjoy in this creation phase, but definitely the research period, because I learn new stuff every time I dip down to football history. Even though I think I know everything, I learn a lot on the fly, and that's what I enjoy the most, because I'm a historian fanatic, so that fits the mold when building these databases. But I think the thing that's my thing is the creation phase where I add the players and the attributes and the numbers and which club they played for and all that. I really enjoy that editing phase, which usually will drive a man crazy after a couple of days. But I don't know what it is, but I really enjoy it.
Is there any moments during that research phase? Because I'm presuming, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because of course all I am is doing presuming, you're watching football, you're looking at stats from back in the day of like how many games these players played, how many goals they scored, tackles, that sort of thing. You're then comparing them to their in-game attributes. I know you use the older games to compare. Is there any players that you've looked at and you've just went, there's no way that those attributes are correct? No. We're scaling that down, or this guy needs a markup. Like they got him wrong completely. Like is that a thing? Because I know you like to try and stay as true to the era, not necessarily to the game, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through, but being true to the era as much as you can. So maybe adapting players' attributes based on roles that may or may not have existed at the time.
Absolutely, it happens a lot. That what you talked about, it happens a lot. I disagree to an extent in how they evaluated the player back then. In some instances, it seems completely random for some players, but that's also the charm of it. But I would say for the 0102 database, it was more easy because I had to copy all the player attributes, current ability and potential ability from one game to another manually. It takes time, but that was just moving the information from one game to another. For the 92-93 database, I had to take some choices myself. And I think the lucky thing is I'm not biased to any clubs, any leagues, anything like that. So I'm not biased to any players or teams. So I think my judgment is what you can say objective as much as possible.
Yeah,
because I have to take some choices in some instances with these players for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing with what I've spotted there with the database is it's not objective, because every player of that era was so good. Like, so,
that's a good point.
You're looking through it, and you're right. Like we've said this before in conversations leading up to getting this interview done. This is, for me, the ultimate rose-tinted glasses save. Like, because I said, again, this was last year, right? I first got into PvP. I didn't really know a great deal about. I didn't play much with edited databases or anything like that. I was saying to a few people. I said to Mozza, and I think I even said to yourself as well, Matt. I was like, you know, what'd be great is if could you do like a 92, 93 database? And I didn't know how easy or difficult that was. I'm just like, well, trying to get one, right? Like, trying to get a 92, 93 database for PvP and draft mode. Imagine how mint it would be, like arguing about who's signing Bobby Mims, and then you just reply by going, actually doing that, shut up, right? It's coming out. Like,
you called it.
Yeah. And then I looked at it and it turned up, and I was literally going, I need to just spend we streamed it the day it came out, 4 hours on stream, and I advanced 3 weeks in pre-season because everyone's just going, check out Brian Roy. Yeah, good point. Let's check out Brian Roy. Oh, what can Andy Hinchcliffe do? I don't know. We're about to find out. Is Ricardo Scamacca in? He might be. Yes, let's have a look. Just, mate, so much fun, man. So, and as I say, just looking at it, it's just perfect. It's perfect. I can't say anything other than because even if it's not, it doesn't matter because it's there. It's a perfect replication of what I think 90s football is. Average players have 20s because of course they do.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the things I enjoy mostly when I turn into a Twitch or YouTube streamer who fires up the database and tells his chat we'll play a lot of games tonight, and he never hits the continue button even once. I enjoy that so much because that's really a part of these databases, enjoying the nostalgia like that, just browsing around the teams, coming by players you have forgotten all about, and I can see the enthusiasm in you guys when you look at those players, and that's the payoff for me completely.
Rich, what about you, man? Because this is, for you, this is great. Wednesday are a top flight, decent top flight club at this point. Chris Waddle is flying high.
Chris Waddle, Chris Woods. There's so many. It's for me. The second I loaded up the database, exactly like Tony, I was off stream, but I was like, right, this is my day now. This is perfect because I can just sit here and I can scroll through clubs, I can scroll through leagues, I can scroll through players, and I can just sit back and I can just remember the good times, like Carlton Palmer. Just that's all you need. Just Carlton Palmer. Everyone just goes, yes, Carlton Palmer. Chris Waddle. Exactly. You know, it's such a nostalgic joyride, but then again, at the same time, it's, you know, there's that old thing, isn't there? There's that wonderful tweet, and it's like, you know, guys can just sit around naming old sports people and have the best time.
You've created this. You've literally created
that. Yeah, but that's what so much of this is. But at the same time, it's based in reality, because there's, you know, but behind this nostalgic this wonderful nostalgic feeling that you get, you also know that there's hours, days, months of meticulous research that have gone into it. So it's not just like somebody saying, "Oh, do you mind Gary Penrice? Wasn't he the greatest striker in the world?" It's like, well, I can look at his attributes and he was all right, but, you know, but that's based in reality. That's based on the Mad Scientist sinking 6 months of his life into creating this world of beautiful nostalgia. But it's also grounded. You can't get carried away with it. But then again, on the flip side of that coin, everything in the 90s was wonderful, especially in the early 90s world of football. So it's quite incredible, quite the incredible thing.
The thing I found quite exciting about it when playing it on stream, because I played the old 0102 off stream, and we used it as one of our Discord challenges last year. So I got a bone to pick with you about the Bolton save, because I didn't do very well with that.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh no, that it's all entirely on me. The thing that we noticed on the 0102 was the wage disparity. Like, players would obviously start with really, really low wages, but then you'd try to sign them and their wages would hike up. It doesn't seem to be that way in this version, which is fantastic. I don't know whether that was a football manager issue or not with the actual database itself, but looking at this and sort of going like, right, we're all ready to go. We're going to load things up, and just sitting and going, right, of course. Right, like just players that you've just forgotten about, and being like, yeah, I'm all right with this. I can just sit. I don't need to do anything. I'm just gonna. Well, what are you doing today? Like Mr. J will be shouting, "What are you doing?" Just looking at old footballers. That's all I'm doing. I'm just seeing what Gabriel Batistuta up to.
Exactly.
That's it. You know, that's what one of my biggest things. You know, like, you know, Mrs. O, she'll be like, You play Football Manager, and I don't really care about it. Her, not me. I'm quite heavily invested. And she's like, but it just looks to me like it's just a glorified spreadsheet. And I'm like, yeah, that's fundamentally what it is. And then I've tried to explain to her the concept of this, like what we're talking about tonight. So you're talking about a glorified spreadsheet, but it's 30 years old. Like, yeah, that's the crux of it. It's like, and people watch you talking about that. I'm like, they do. Quite a lot of them do. And she's like, well, you do you. Yeah, as long as you're happy. As like, I am happy, and there's literally tens of thousands of other people that are happy doing the exact same thing. Not only I'll go through a player's like not only will I go through the attributes, I'll be like, the first thing I do after I've looked at attributes is I go career history. And that's my jam. That
Me too.
That's the joy. I'm like, oh. They've played 2 seasons in Serie B, and they averaged 30 goals a season. Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah. But again, that shows the level of detail that you're not just doing a quick, like, all right, I'll do 92, 93. I'll do the Premier League, and that's it. You know, because some people would have been happy with that. But when we loaded it up and we're pulling up like teams in Norway, and there's players from 92, 93 in Norway. That's not the current Rosenborg and Odds Ball Club squads. I'm like, oh, he has spent the like. There was never in doubt that you'd not spent the time, but it was just like, yeah, of course. Why would you wouldn't risk it, would you? You wouldn't be like, oh, here's a couple of players that are from modern day. Like, just it's those levels of details that just it's that labor of love that I think shines through. And why? I mean, I guess we probably already know the answer, but why 92, 93? Like, is it? Well, I'll tell you what, two questions. Why 92, 93? And why is it your favorite database you've created so far?
Two very good questions. Yeah, because I actually started planning on this 92, 93 database a couple of years ago when I looked ahead and I could see that 30th anniversary coming up for the very first edition of Championship Manager. I had to celebrate that in some way, just for myself, because I've played CM/FM for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to look into this season, obviously the 92 Euros with my nation Denmark won that, but also the very first season of the Premier League, called the Premier League, that was epic as well. And there's a lot of storylines to go with, and it is also my golden age, just like I know for you guys. Last year, I could see the 0102 database hit a wider spectrum of people. And what happens every time we release a database is people come back to me and tell, hey, it was the period I started watching football. I remember this from my childhood. And that's essentially what the 92-93 database is for me.
Yeah, I think it's been brilliant to watch, particularly watching people streaming it or PvPing it, who obviously not their generation, not their time. This is like players who are completely brand new. You might as well put the Saturn League on or something, and people go like, I'm not really familiar with the Galactical Division 3. Go, this is just players from the 90s. Like these players like so out of anyone's thought process, and even people who are so versed in football. I remember watching the playoffs, where of course we used the database to great effect, and of course thank you for adding that in, and we'll discuss that a bit more as well. But watching someone like RDF Tactics, who we love and adore so much, he's got a football brain and then some, who'd never heard of Stefan Chapusat. He didn't know how to pronounce Stefan Chapusat's name. And because if you've never seen it written down, you would never know how to say it.
Noises. Just beautiful RDF noises.
Yeah. George Wah. Who's George Wah? It's weird. So for you, like that must be amazing to open that world of football up to a younger generation who, of course, have never heard of Steve Hodge.
And therefore never lived. It's
Ian Warne? Who's Ian Warne?
That's the thing. I enjoy that as well as much. I think when people write me that they have stumbled upon a player in the save in this database and then don't know him, and they have YouTubed him or written about him or anything like that. That's what I want to hear. That's perfect.
And that's the really lovely thing about especially this year's database, is that it's like discovering, it's like if somebody introduces you to an old band, for example, and you hear one of their songs and you go, oh, I might go back and listen to some of their albums. It's like with this database, because it's one of the greatest times in modern football, there's no duds there. Like you go back, it's like, oh, I'm going to start looking into this player. And it's like, oh, as it turns out, they were really, really good. And here's loads and loads of really exciting highlights. Or like, we can go back and we can look at this period in football. And the results of that research for younger players are going to be so rewarding, and it's going to open up like a whole new avenue of interests for them from the world of actual football. It's quite an incredible thing. There's no bad tracks on this album.
It's the back catalogue where all the B-sides are bangers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, this is literally the perfect band, just with the perfect anthology. And like what I like, and again we've spoken about previously, is that you've stayed really true to, we've mentioned before, specific formations and player roles of that time. So we've joked, particularly in PvP, There ain't no fullback. There ain't no wing backs. There's no wing backs. There's 5. There's 5 wing backs in the database because wing back wasn't a thing. So was that a conscious decision for you to stick so true to that? Or were you ever tempted to be like, oh, maybe give him a little nudge on the wing back because people like playing wing backs?
I usually try to stay as original as possible to the evaluation of the players that Games have done or IDOS back in the day. Just copy the attributes and their information. But yeah, in some instances, it's really difficult not to tweak a little bit. But I think it came completely natural in this case. There's just not a lot of wingbacks back then, and also ball-playing defenders. Go and search for those guys. There's not a lot around. There's a lot of no-nonsense center backs, but not the other way around. And then the thing about we are missing the sweeper role in the modern game, that of course also influenced on many of the players because there was a lot of sweepers around back then. Smaller defenders covered by taller defenders around.
Absolutely. If you'd gone into a dressing room in the early 1990s and said, right lads, what we're going to do is we're going to try and work the ball out from the back. We're going to play. We're going to start the moves from the defenders. They would have tried you for witchcraft and put you in the ducking stool. That would have been it for you.
Or
it's game over.
They'd have looked at you and went, the goalkeeper can't kick very far, right? Centre backs, you're taking goal kicks. That's what they'd have thought. Playing out from the defence, right? Give it to him, and he's going to boot it really far. So it is nice to see that, and again to look at a lack of acceleration across the board for centre backs who all sort of loved the idea of running, but not so much at the same time. No, not really. Not going to do that running thing. So that plays a bit of a sort of trick in the modern match engine as well, when you've got really, really generational level strikers with high anticipation and acceleration against centre backs who've got at best acceleration of 6.
You could, if you go back, bye bye. If you go back and look at if you look at the kind of the evolution of those attributes, especially the physical attributes of people like defenders, you can really pinpoint when they legally had to stop advertising smoking on the telly. But
The thing is, back in that day was when Neil Ruddock was known as a ball-playing defender.
Exactly.
What? He takes a touch and then whacks it. That's not ball-playing defender.
Yeah, exactly. Paul McGrath was the cover star of Men's Fitness. It was incredible. What a time to be alive.
Paul McGrath, what's your training schedule? Oh, once a year, best.
What's your training schedule, Paul? No.
Yeah, no. Yeah. But the thing I must admit, the thing that I like most about some of this this database is player traits. Okay, and there's a few absolute belters in here. Okay, because the 90s, for our younger viewers and listeners, might not know, the 90s was an era where goalkeepers weren't just goalkeepers, particularly in South America.
Yes,
goalkeepers. The phrase used to be a goalkeeper is a frustrated striker, but in South America, a goalkeeper is also a striker.
Yeah.
Enter Jose Chilavert from Paraguay, the man who is the record goal scorer for Paraguay, I believe. Renny Higuita, the Colombian famous for the scorpion kick, and Mexico's Jorge Campos. Okay, now, I'm not making this up. Okay, Mad, thank you so much for the player traits of Jorge Campos, the Mexican goalkeeper, whose player trait is attempt overhead kicks. Because it's so fucking true.
It's realistic.
It's mental and based in reality, which are the two, the perfect combination of things. This shouldn't exist, but does because it was real.
Actually, some years ago, you could assign a player to be a goalkeeper and a striker in the game. You can't, unfortunately, do that anymore. So I had to tweak it up with some traits.
Yeah, so Chilavert's got 19 for free kicks and penalties. Campos is probably a little bit dialed down, but again, there's videos of him coming on as a substitute for LA Galaxy as a forward, doing a rainbow flick over a defender to win a penalty and then scoring the penalty. But my favorite one is René Higuita, okay, the Colombian goalkeeper. Free kick taking of 16, penalty taking of 18. The following player traits. You talk about sweeper keeper on attack. Runs with ball through centre. Gets forward whenever possible. Tries to play way out of trouble. Runs with ball often. Brings ball out of defence. You must have just been sat there and just went, player traits. Yes, that'll do.
Let's go. And the thing about Campos and Higuita is the 5'6" or something like that. Both of them,
just like, they're like left back size. Eccentricity of 20, and you're like, oh no, this is going to end badly.
I was looking so much forward to
sign them.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking so much forward to see how it would look in the modern game engine.
Oh, does it look exactly as you thought?
Yes, and 20 for flair for Campos as well, and he's just so tiny in that goal.
Exactly. There's no ball playing defenders in this database, but ball playing goalkeeper, you say?
Brings ball out of defence. Yes, boss.
I've got you.
Sorry, René, you're the goalkeeper. Nope.
I think we're going to need a new role this year. Rush goalie. That's what we're going to need.
Yes, yeah. But that was a thing back in the 90s. I don't know if it was a thing in Denmark, but over in the UK, rush goalies when you were at school was one player who was in goal was allowed to roll the ball out and run with it whenever he wanted, as long as whoever was furthest back then went in goal.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So your centre half was allowed to stand back in goal. He could save the ball with his hands because keeper's already gone for a runner. So he's gone off to try and score. Right, defender goes in goal for a bit until keeper gets back. Then you tag back through. So
brilliant.
That was rush goalies.
I was one of those rush goalies myself.
Yeah. Oh, you of course you were. Of course you were.
Yeah, little known footballing fact is actually short for Ian rush goalies. It's not. It's not. I thought I had something there, but
there was the mountain plaque in America. It was called Mount Rush goalies at first, and it was Higuita, it was Campos, it was Chilavert. Then they knocked it down and made American presidents. Not as good, if you ask me personally. Other traits as well, which I think would have been incredibly 90s. Does blasties would have been good.
Yes,
does blasties. Hits free kicks with power. Hits shots with power. Just does blasties.
Yeah.
I'd take
absolutely.
that. Couple of questions I think we'll do before we go. Actually, no, I'm going to make a question here. You got Parma shirts in the bar for our YouTube viewers, of course. Parma shirts, is that is of course your Twitch save, isn't it? Your Parma 92-93 save.
Yeah, it is.
Any particular reason for Parma? Is that a team that you have a bit of a fascination for? Or is it just a Parma love for that team?
Yeah, it's a bit of weird. Dane favorite club is Parma. But it's been that since 1992. Actually, also a story for 1992. I went to a summer camp in Parma to train for a week or two. I can't even remember. And we had a guest coach which was Faustino Asprilla. And
what?
He's been my goat since then, and I've been a Parma supporter since then, in bad and good times.
How has this never come up before? That's incredible.
We're nearly 40 minutes in the podcast, and you've now decided to drop the thing of, so what got you into 90s football? You didn't mention that I was trained by Faustino Asprilla. Also, as well, you refer to it as my coach, as if it's like your sensei. Like,
oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, I was trained by Coach Asprilla.
Trained, yeah. I can hear that, how that sounds.
I mean, there's the bit that we put out on Twitter. That's really easy.
There you go. That's this week's clip, isn't it? Yeah. Mad Scientist, Bezos with Faustino Asprilla.
Tell us more. You were trained by Faustino Asprilla.
That was it. I just became a Parma supporter since then.
I love that. I genuinely love that. Because again, that Parma team back in the day was filled, as every single Italian team was just filled with stars. Way beyond anything you could even comprehend now. And I think that's the thing that I love about this era of football is people nowadays will talk about and they'll say daft stuff like the Premier League's the best league in the world, and it's not. It's barely even the best league in the British Isles, right? But it's not you've got one or two teams who've maybe got all the best players, but you go to Italy at that time, all of the teams in Italy had all of the best players. Like literally every single team had 20 superstars that would have fit in any single team in any other team in the world. And you literally have to go, yeah, that was quite good to watch, wasn't it? Really good to watch. So you're sitting there as a young child going, think I'll watch this. I'm going to learn something here. And yeah, it was just like no one had ever seen anything before, I think, at the time.
Unheard of. Just unheard of. Just the sheer array of talent at every single club. It's not like it was limited to, you know, big three or big four. It's like looking at Man City's squad now, but then giving all of those players to Burnley. And then there's a match. Don't worry, we'll just refill the superstars, and that's the level. Like that's the benchmark for talent. There were no dud teams in Serie A in
I
the early 90s.
I especially enjoy the story about Giorgi Hagi, who plays for Brescia in the Italian Serie A, who just got promoted this season, and they buy him from Real Madrid. You don't hear that today. He was 27 years old, one of the best players in the world at the time, playing at Brescia. Love those stories.
Yeah, and not long after replacing Roberto Baggio, who of course down there, and I think Pirlo went on to play for Brescia a bit later on. But you're right, like players leaving the top clubs to go to anybody in Italy at the time just to say you were there. It was it was crazy. I remember David Platt joining Bari. Just to go to Italy, and it was amazing times. But even the Premier League itself was still full of, again, potentially nostalgic players more than anything. But we mentioned during the FM playoffs that because of the database and because of the players that are in it, we struggled to find anyone who had a bad team. Like it was literally the database was just there. Everyone's picking 20 players, and we looked around us going, there's still about 19 teams worth of players left that we could have all had, and we could have all had brilliant teams. Like it was just so much fun, like getting people like, I mean, I was straight. I was like, I've got to be part of this. I've got to be in there. This is my era. Getting Ian McIntosh. I mean, that must have felt great for you personally to get McIntosh in there using your database and telling stories. And then of course, getting yourself in to do comms. I mean, how did that make you feel to see that play out, your creation being used in that environment?
Yeah, that night or that week, all those days, that FM Player of Week meant a lot for me. I saw it as a celebration, not for me, but for the database. It was what I hoped, I wished for would happen, and that FM playoffs, I just enjoyed from the start to the end. Seeing people drafting on the database, had this different tactics and philosophies and stuff. I enjoyed it all the way. It was magnificent for me to see.
Yeah, it was cool, man. I think it was really, really well received as well. Like Rich, you were part of that. You were sort of in the comms team, and just watching potentially people, I want to say myself, voting and drafting entirely with my heart and not with my head.
It was such, and the lovely thing about the playoffs that when we used the 92-93 database, the really, really nice thing about it is that there was just such a wonderfully diverse group of people taking part in the playoffs, and just in terms of, you know, just in terms of age, like you've got, you know, guys like you've got Tony, you've got like Ian McIntosh, who have lived through it, and this is, as we've said, it's the rose-tinted draft. You're like, I must sign these players because I love them and I remember them from the 90s, and I just remember being in awe of them. And you've got that, and you've got the opposite end of the spectrum. You've got the younger lads who are in there who, in some cases, probably weren't born when in the 92-93 season, and they're just going through it like, right, okay, so what attributes do we need? How can we work around this? How can we work around this? It's RDF, trying to say Chapuisat. There was such a wonderfully diverse, like, just spectrum of people taking part, and with their level of involvement with the game from before, and getting to just, you know, the thing that I loved about it is getting to sit back and judge people on it, which is, you know, that's my remit. You know, I won't take part, but I'll tell you how bad you are at it.
Just to justify the voting with my head or voting with my heart rather than my head, I'm the guy who drafted Gary Penrice and then drafted Alan Shearer. Like as if to go like, I'm getting Gary Penrice because Shearer will still be on the board.
Oh, exactly. When we did, when we did TJ versus the community, the last month's competition, and we used the 92-93 database. During the shortlisting phase, I shortlisted Chris Waddle, and then just sat there for 4 minutes and 50 seconds. So, well, I've done it now, and
The rest will pick itself. Right?
And I didn't pick him till about round 15.
We'll
work around it.
I got a message from SNG who sent me like a little sort of shortlist going, these are some players that you might want to look at, and Vizcaino was on it, who is and I looked at him, I was like, yes, we need to get him in. And I got a message at the end after drafting. He's like, why didn't you draft him? I was like, I'll be honest, couldn't spell it. It was literally on my screen, and I didn't think to copy and paste it. I was like, can't spell it.
No.
Don't know.
Looking and typing. It's not the Tony Jameson way. How dare you?
Rule Fox.
7 letters.
Just did Fox, Fox.
Just Fox, yeah. I spell roll funny.
Question we've got from the community, as Rich has mentioned, TJFM versus the community. Chris Tamble on Twitter. What has Gareth Southgate done to offend you so badly?
Yeah, first of all, I can definitely understand that question. It's not the first time I've been asked that question, and nothing to be frank. I went with some of the older attributes for Southgate, and to come back to, we talked about earlier, some of the defenders were really slow. I think it comes down to that again. If you take a look at Tony Adams, for an example. He has 20 heading, 20 jumping, 20 positioning. If they have given him 15-15 in pace and acceleration, it would have been completely crazy. So that's why they try to tone it down. And that's the thing in wider scale with Southgate, because his mental attributes are close to world class. His physicals are decent as well, but his technicals are ridiculous. They're really, really bad. But that was how they rated him back in the day. So I chose to go with some of the older attributes for him, because it was before he played a lot of international caps and such. So no personal hit on Southgate from me.
I just thought you hated that pizza,
I can understand.
which is fair enough. It's absolutely diabolical.
Yeah, and you did beat Denmark in last year's Euros, so I could have a motive for that.
That seems fair. I can't, of course, take any of the blame for that, being a noted Scotland fan. Former Aston Villa fan, however, I could take exception. But question as well from Lou P. Fiasco. Who is your favourite player to use in the game?
Yeah, the obvious one would, of course, be my favorite player of all time, Faustino Sbriglia, and he is one of those I'm trying to sign every time if I'm not Parma. But I found one I think is one of the best gems in the database, and it surprised me. It's Sabri Lamouchi. He's a Frenchman, and he plays plays in the French Ligue 2, I believe. And you can bring him in the first season for 250k, and he covers 4 positions naturally. And I've seen him 5-8 seasons in. You can go and get him for every save and use him for something. So he's actually one of my favorite players to use in the database so far.
Sabri Lamouchi is such a great shout. Like, I used to buy him all the time. And you know what? He is the 92-93 version. If I was playing 01-02 of Vikash Darasho. The Le Havre midfield. I used to always buy him because he did everything Lamouchi used to do. And I was like, he seems relatively the same player. I'm going to get him. Lamouchi. Oh, yes. Rich, can you beat Sabri Lamouchi?
No, I can't. No, I can't. Straight up. Just the answer is no. No, I can't. No, when you're beaten. I'm not going to top Lamouchi.
I was expecting Romario, but Lamouchi, I'm going. Yeah, I'm bang on that. On that. Like, Fraser Lloyd Davis, Peter Shilton, player manager. Need I say more?
No. That's amazing. That's fantastic. A story to the creation of Peter Shilton on this database. For his career history, it goes from 1965 to 1992, and it took me 45 minutes just to add his playing career. That was crazy, but I enjoyed it all the way.
I love the fact that Peter Shilton is therefore technically featured in every single one of your databases.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he could do that. That's fantastic. And the player manager side of it, that's just romantic in some sort of for us who remember how it was back then. I think there's 4 or 5 player managers in the Premier League, and
Glenn
one
Hoddle, is he still?
Glenn
player
Hoddle
manager?
is in the first division for Swindon. The season they got promoted, but that's something you never see in modern days. So that's so much fun.
Love a player manager. I absolutely adore a player manager. Bring it back. More of that kind of thing, please.
Sheffield Wednesday do have a player manager from the beginning, right? Isn't it Trevor Francis or something?
Yeah, Trev's there. Yeah, of course he is. Yeah. It's. I love it. I absolutely love it. I want somebody like it's just that really like endearing mental image of just somebody on the touchline that angry they just drop trowel to reveal a pair of shorts. Like, I'll do it myself.
Yes, that happened.
Yeah. Come on. Or someone who's that distrusting in his players that he starts.
I'd really like to imagine, but it's kind of they're not a tracksuit manager; they're a suit manager. But they've got the kit on underneath, and you can see it.
The Superman it.
Yeah,
70 minutes in, one down. Love it.
Or they can either Superman it, or they can do it like a bad day where like, they're sort of taking their time. They get stuck and they're having to unbutton a cufflink.
Exactly.
Taking their shoes off and getting stuck. Oh, has anyone got any shin pads? I've not.
And their really browbeaten wife just walks onto the touchline. If you had a bad day at work, don't want to talk about it. Don't want to talk about it yet.
I lost as a manager and lost as a player. That's 2 defeats today. Yeah. It's not fun. But what's the plan then, Mad? What's the plan going forward? Do you have any more future plans?
Yeah, what I have done for most of the database I've created is ask my followers. I post a poll and ask people which season do you want me to make, and I go with the most popular one. Except for the last one, the 92-93 database, I picked that myself. So next year, I would have left it to my followers again. But for the last 2 votings, one particular season came in second, very close to the winning seasons, and that's the 09-10 season. So I'm listening to the demand, and when I announced I was going to make the 92-93 season, my DMs got overflooded with people who said we want the 09-10 season. So I know there's a huge demand for that. So that's the front runner right now. But initially I thought 2009, that's yesterday. That's not retro at all. That's not. I don't understand it, but I'm sure there's some storylines in there. But I'll ask my followers one more time.
That would make me very happy on a personal level. That would make me very, very happy. That's 09-010. That's my jam.
What was happening on 09-010 for Wednesday at the time?
Oh, we won't talk about that.
Okay.
just abject misery. Just abject misery. I think that 09-010. I think that was dark days of championship football. I think clinging on to the championship I think got relegated in 10-11. Then back up in 11-12. So yeah, a rough period in football. Just purely for me, because I know I think Bogdan Stanku was a wonder kid back then. And in the very, very, very early FMT days, when there were some really, really interesting names for episodes being thrown around, I messaged Matt Bogdan Stanku very much as an episode, and he went, "Is the only one ever got a positive response from Matt?" I was like, "Yeah, that's good. Actually, that's really strong."
Never used it, did we?
Never used it.
Alan Stoiker as well would have been in that database, I think. So
Carlos Vea as well. That was.
Hey, we're doing your work for you here.
Yeah,
man.
please.
Oh my god,
keep it coming.
Why aren't you taking notes, Matt? Come on.
We've got the Mad Scientist, we've got the Daft Northerner, and Rich. So this is easy.
Hello.
Oh, mate, like genuinely, we could sit and chat 92, 93 all night long. But we did ask one favour of you, didn't we? We said, can you give us 5? And this is not just 5 from the original database, the original 92 database, because of course, at time of recording, there is now an expansion pack. There is Holland and Portugal. Some team in Holland was quite good in the 90s. If you want to play with them, that's fine. They've got 1 or 2 half decent prospects kicking around in their reserves. If you were to pick 5 teams to say you must manage these teams on your database, who would they be and why?
So I will base this on my own saves. I already had a bunch of saves on this database, and the saves I had most fun with was for once Bordeaux in France. Bordeaux has just got promoted this season. They went down for one season to the Ligue 2 and came back. And they do have a Zinedine Zidane in their team, Bixente Lizarazu, and Christophe Dugarry. So they had 3 players to base their team and build around, and I had so much fun with doing that. So Bordeaux is my first shout.
Very popular from the Bordeaux region of France, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we had a TGFM versus the community in FM 21 where we picked Bordeaux, and I'd said, and everyone thought I'd said this as a daft thing. I was like, this is clearly a knowing joke. And I was like, a team from the Bordeaux region of France, Bordeaux, and of course it's stuck as, are they from the Bordeaux region? Yes, they are. Yeah, right. So Bordeaux, I love it. I love the fact that Bordeaux's in there. Okay, excellent. Who else have we got?
Then I had a brilliant save with Blackburn, who also just got promoted to the English Premier League at the time, and they do have that 21-year-old Alan Shearer to build for the future. And they don't have the strongest team in the English Premier League, but they do have some components to build forward on, and especially Shearer for sure.
They've got Graham Lasso as well, haven't they? Who's an exceptional left wing back. Has he gone there at the time, or is he still at Chelsea?
Is he at Chelsea? I think he's at Chelsea, actually, yeah. I had Stuart Ripley, who played fantastic for me.
Excellent. Did they have a lot of money as well, Blackburn, at that time? Because proportionally, I suppose, compared to other teams, they may have had a bit more cash.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of money compared to most of other teams in the Premier League, but they do have enough to make some signings for sure.
Okay. Blackburn's there. Who else have we got?
Then we go to the Spanish La Liga and we go with Sevilla. Sevilla was my very first save because they have Diego Maradona, Davor Suker, and Diego Simeone. That's 3 players again to base your team on, and they were a mid-table team back then in Spain. So yeah, there's a lot of fun to have with that, and try to get a crack on Maradona to get the best out of him. That's not the easiest part every time.
He's difficult to manage, that Maradona. He's a tricky little nipper.
We've seen it in several drafts. People having trouble with managing him.
Yeah, I can't think why.
No, it's really media description is just scamp.
Ooh, bit narky.
Yeah.
doesn't like early mornings.
Mood
there's some
swings.
there's some hidden attributes in there for Maradona.
There is. Easily agitated. Okay, so Blackburn, Bordeaux, Seville.
And we then need to go to Italy and take a look at Fiorentina for once. We got that Gabriel Batistuta up on top. That's enough for one save, right? But they also do have Brian Laudrup and the German Stefan Effenberg. 3 world-class players. Other than that, they don't have the strongest team, but they're not even playing in Europe or anything, so there's lots of time to build on that team, and that's a lot of fun because the Italian Serie A, as you said many times, Tony, were world-class back then. There's no easy matches at all. So it's a good challenge.
Effenberg's such a baller on that database as well. In PvP mode. Oh, yeah. If you lock Effenberg down, yeah, absolutely. Right. So Laviola are in.
Yes, please.
We're up to pick number 5. What's pick number 5?
Let's jump over to the Scottish Premiership and a shout like Aberdeen. In real life,
never heard of them.
Never heard of them.
No.
ever managed that, Tony? Ever had a go?
No. God, could you imagine?
Just went on holiday for 2 years.
Right. Let me. Aberdeen. Am I saying it right? Aberdeen.
Sounds quite right. Yeah.
Yeah, you've heard of them, Tony, from the Aberdeen region of France.
The winemaking region of Scotland. Aberdeen.
Yes. It's where Buckfast comes from.
Sorry, Aberdeen.
Yeah,
I had an ill-fated managerial career with them in FM21, so
I can
we
hear
skipped
that.
past it.
In real life, in '92, they ended in second position in the Scottish Premier League, just between Rangers and Celtic, of course. So I think that's a funny challenge as well. They have some older Scottish legends around still, but a striker partnership of Miksu Patilainen, the Finnish, and Duncan Shearer.
Oh, loving that. And also as well, a little spot as well, Duncan Ferguson is still at Dundee United, and
Yes.
he's angry. He's very angry at 19.
Yeah.
Okay. I love the sound of all of those. But the reason we've asked you to do those is, as you know, we have a one season wonder challenge as part of our Discord community, and we don't have a challenge this month. So, Mad, we would very much like to use your database for a challenge. So please feel free to address our community. What is the one season wonder challenge that you want people to undertake using your 92-93 database? Who are we managing for one season and why?
Thanks for doing this with my database, first of all, and thanks a lot. It's a huge responsibility to choose your monthly challenge. And by the reaction of Aberdeen, I'm tending to go with Aberdeen for the monthly challenge.
You're an evil man. You're an evil man.
I want to see that live stream, Tony.
He was serious as well, wasn't he? He's serious. Oh. Here's me thinking it's going to be like, oh, you know, it's had to be an Italian team. It's Aberdeen, isn't it?
It could be Fiorentina. It could be Fiorentina. But what do you think, Rich?
Oh no, Matt! This is all you, my man. I personally, I would be happy with any of the five.
Yeah,
any of the five.
Yeah.
I think those five teams. I think they suit the monthly challenge format very, very, very nicely. But you know, this is your baby. This is your remit. Any of those five, my friend. Where do you want to go?
I would say also
pull the trigger. It's happening.
I would say also any of the five, because they're difficult challenges in their own rights. All those five saves, I would like to see them all. So it's difficult for me to choose. But I like the reaction when I said Aberdeen. So
Aberdeen does it for me. We've not done Scotland. We've not done Scotland on FM22. So you know what? You want Aberdeen?
Win the Scottish Premiership first season.
Stay in the Scottish Premier League with Aberdeen. Good.
Survive Aberdeen.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, there you go. That's a challenge. That's the challenge right there. Then, so it's one season with a club that apparently exists, a club called Aberdeen, using the 92-93 database. Mad, I love it. I genuinely love it. We'll put the links to the database, of course, in the description below, and links to all your socials and everything like that. Speaking of which, where can people find you? Where can people find you on social media? And of course, your databases, Patreon as well, to support you, because you're doing amazing work, quite frankly. So plug yourself away, my man.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it so much, and I'm very happy to that you wanted to have me on the show. I appreciate that so much. If people search for the Mad Scientist FM on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all around, Steam, where all my databases are released on, I also have a website. Go search for it, and Patreon as well. The Mad Scientist FM, you'll find me.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, as I say, everything's in the links down below. So do go and show the Mad Scientist some love, even though he's been a bit of an evil bugger with Aberdeen. But we'll let him off for that one. I hope you're going to play this challenge as well. So it'll be interesting to see how you get on at the same time. Because you've got the little inside track on the play as well. That's going to be interesting. Rich, do you want to do some plugging as well, mate?
Normally I would. I plug myself. But I think if there's one person in the FM community that you can afford to support in any capacity, it's Mad Scientist. Mad Scientist has a Patreon. Mad Scientist does such a ridiculous amount of work every single year to bring us these just incredible databases. The man is an absolute machine. Please just click on that man's Patreon. He deserves it 10 times over. So the hell with me. go follow Mad Scientist on his platforms, donate to his Patreon, do anything you can to help support him, because without him, there would not have been this episode, there would not be this database. What a dude.
Pay the man. That's what they say. Yeah, agreed. You know what, Mad? It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for going on. As I say, thank you so much for all your work. And of course, please do come back in the future. Let us know how you're going with this challenge. And of course, we'll talk to you about next year's save as well. Plus, I'm sure we'll do a much more PvP with your database. So again, we look forward to welcoming you back to TJFM versus the community for that. We will, of course, say, hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please follow the podcast on Twitter, which is at FMTPod. Of course, we're also available on YouTube now, which is youtube.com/football manager therapy, because we've got our own proper custom URL and everything now. So thank you so much for everyone who supports us there. As I say, thank you, as always, for your support. We will see you all very soon on another episode of Football Manager Therapy.